What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Mark Weinstein, and he wrote the book, and we'll see his amazing background, Restoring Our Sanity Online, which is a revolutionary social framework. You can check out his website at markweinsteininventor.com, which we'll pull up in a second. But Mark, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. I kind of was thinking about this interview today, Mark, and I was like, Mark's really been a pioneer in the industry. And so I was like, what other pioneers have I had on that were interesting for people to check out? And so I had the co-founder of Pixar, Alvy Ray Smith. That was an interesting one. The founder of Atari, Nolan Bushnell. That was also very interesting. The founder of RX Bar and the founder of Big League Chew. Some of those were just really amazing stories and journeys. You can check those out. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. You know, we do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution. So, Mark, we call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background that make it look easy for the hosts. They can create amazing content, amazing relationships, and most importantly, run their business. You know, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways on how I can give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and the companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. I am excited to introduce Mark Weinstein. He's a tech thought leader, privacy expert. He launched social media networks, believe it or not, back in 1998. That's why he's definitely one of the pioneers, social media. It was called Super Family and Super Friends. Actually, the sites were named PC Magazine's top 100 sites for 3 consecutive years. He actually went on to found MeWe, which is the first social network with a user privacy bill of rights. They gained nearly 20 million users without any paid marketing campaigns. He is the author, as I mentioned, of the book Restoring Our Sanity Online, a revolutionary social framework. And Mark, it's pretty amazing, you know, some of the people who endorsed this book. You look at the list, and these are a list of OGs. Okay, so we're talking Steve Wozniak, Apple co-founder, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. And I was like looking at his Wikipedia page. It's unbelievable. He was, if people don't know who he is, English computer scientist, best known as the inventor of the World Wide Web, the HTML markup language, the URL system, and HTTP. Like, holy cow, that's amazing. Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. I love his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And also you had Raj Sasidio, he's the co-founder of Conscious Capitalism. So it's pretty remarkable. Mark, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's great to be here, man. Thank you. And, you know, there's another guy I know really well, a great guy, Kelly Slater, you know, world champion surfer, who is another one of the endorsers. And I think you and I talked offline before. Jack Canfield, of course, the world's success coach and one of the greatest transformational leaders of all time. And thanks, man. Listen, this is a big conversation, everybody. You know, I'm one of the guys who invented social media. There's a whole bunch of us that did it at the same time back in the 90s. And social media was really visionary at the time. And it was just an amazing moment where this idea that we could use the web to connect with each other, with our friends and family and like-minded people around the world, stay connected, bring us closer together, bring the human family closer together. It was really an extraordinary time, very visionary. And the vision of social media was very pure and very beautiful. And that's how it starts, Jeremy.
Talk about that time, visualizing in that era. Who else were you collaborating with and seeing in 1998? I mean, I don't even know what was online at that time. Who were some of the other people in the space that you were, collaborating with or working with or seeing, launch things?
So listen, 1998 was a very robust time. This was Web 1, and it was, the new economy, and it was flying. Um, in the social space, we were all in beta at the same time. There were things like iVillage, My Family, e-circles, e-groups, the Globe. Lots of places were teaming up. And we were very specifically, superfamily.com was all about, your family and your extended family, and these, really sort of websites within the website for you and your family. You shared photos, you had a family newspaper. We had a fridge. Everybody could put sticky notes on it for everybody else. There was a lot of great tech back even in the late 90s. People don't realize it, and then back then, you upload all your family photos, and then we'd send them over to Walgreens for you, and then you go pick them up. It was really, it was a crazy time. But the vision was very pure. There were no bots and trolls. There was no boosted content. There was nobody paying a website to push content into your newsfeed. There was no algorithm deciding what it decided you should see first. So the purity of the experience was really extraordinary. And it was birthed out of this vision of, we could already work and live anywhere in the world at that point. And, we had cell phones. They were already, coming and about, but we weren't using the web to stay in connection, to expand the human connectivity, the human connection. So it was great. And there were certainly a lot of people. And of course, everything was going on there. Drugstore.com was going on, and pets.com, all these, it was really quite the revolution. That was really the beginning of the tech revolution.
What made you decide to launch those sites? Like, now it's obviously a bit sexier to be an entrepreneur, and then it wasn't, right? I mean, how do you even find the engineers to engineer this thing? I mean, it's like really early on. What made you decide to start this as opposed to, I know you were philosophy, sociology, you went out to get your MBA at UCLA. You could have just gone in the business world and done your thing.
And I was also a car nut. I still love cars, great hobby. But the fact, look, I got really interested in tech. And tech was really birthing it. And then, really, the idea of communication, really, this is one of those things that comes out of the mouth of babes, so to speak, the children. Took a hike with my 10-year-old nephew, on a family vacation in the middle of nowhere in Stanley, Idaho. And we were talking about this conversation. It was like, Uncle Marky, wouldn't it be great if we could ... fill in the dots. How he wanted to stay in touch, because we were on a family vacation with our extended family, and we lived around the country, and all of us traveled around the world. And he was like the birth of this idea. 10 minutes in the conversation, I said to my nephew, I'm going to start a company. I'm going to give you 10% of what I own in it. And literally, it was one of those awarenesses, everybody, you have these moments in your life where whether you do it or not, you feel something. You're like, oh, I should do that. Or, oh my God, this is really important, or this is it, or this is for me, or whatever it is. You have that feeling once in a while. These could be, maybe once in a lifetime or once every few years. That's how it starts. Now, Jeremy, your other question about how do you find the engineers? Now, listen, everybody, that's really the point here is, no designed for the web in 1997, 1998, and nobody knew how to design for a website that was a communication website that would load on dial-up. For everybody who doesn't know what dial-up is, the way we got to the internet there was through a phone line, and that was called dial-up. That was the only way you could get to the internet back in the day, in the late 90s. So, I mean, if you had a company, you could plug in a T1 line. They were called T1s, which were great, super speed, super fast, super broad. But in your house, you couldn't install a T1. They were very expensive, like $1,000 a month. So, you had a phone line. So anyway, the first designers, graphic designers and engineers I hired, I remember the first beautiful pages for the website wouldn't load. So you couldn't, no one would ever get them. So, I was in New Mexico. I went to the labs, Los Alamos labs, Sandia labs. I recruited engineers out of the labs. That's how I did it.
That's amazing. Talk about some of the lessons. I know, we mentioned, Steve Wozniak and Sir Tim Berners-Lee. From Steve Wozniak, talk about, I don't know, any lessons learned from him. Obviously, you get a great endorsement of the book. What have you learned from Steve?
Well, it was Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web. Everybody, was the co-founder of Apple. Raj Sisodia, the co-founder of Conscious Capitalism. Sherry Turkle, a brilliant scholar, MIT scholar, author of many books, including Alone Together, about the impact of technology on human beings and on our relationships. All of these and many others, Jack Canfield, you mentioned, have been advisors over the years. So it's almost like, somebody pinched me, and it's also so humbling that such extraordinary, ethical, authentic, brilliant human beings would come to, my side and whisper in my ear and say, look, here's a way to do this and here's a way to do that, or, thank you for doing this. Because, in Web 2, when I came into Web 2 and launched MeWe, to compete with Facebook, and many people called us the anti-Facebook because we didn't have boosted content. Your timeline was newsline ordered. We had a privacy bill of rights so that everything that you did, was yours. It wasn't ours. We didn't aggregate your data. We didn't have an algorithm trying to figure out what you should see or what we should sell you. There were no ads. There's no, so this idea and the fact that I took this on, and I liquidated my retirement account, and I started that second company that, in 2000, we launched me in 2016 after, several years raising money and running a beta project. Having such incredible people support me, and then having, Sir Tim and Woz and Raj and Jack, all these wonderful people endorse the book, and not just endorse it, but Jeremy, as you saw, Sir Tim Berners-Lee says it's a vital read. Woz says it's a must read. And it's not just about the read. We've got to talk about this stuff, and we've got to do it. It's like, this is a book about taking action, because our power is in our action. It's not just in sitting around and reading, but it's that reading it and being inspired and taking action to be part of the solution.
We'll definitely talk about, some stories from the book. I have some notes here of questions I have. Back to Woz for a second. What's advice that he gave you? It could be with the book, it could be with MeWe. What sticks out to you as some advice that he gave you throughout the years?
Well, here's the thing about Woz. Woz is a huge supporter of the mission, of the vision. And so Woz really, I think Woz, his message to people, if I could just, say how I see it, is to stay on course when you're doing something really important and really good. Is stay with it, because, Woz is all about, the human condition, and this to everybody by, when you learn about Woz is a fascinating and wonderful and extraordinary human being. And he's all about humanity. So, I think just being supported by Woz is just spectacular. Being supported by Sir Tim, who also, was able, to give good advice about privacy and, engineering possibilities and where we can go. And Sir Tim is so inspiring to me, and has been for years. I've met with Tim many times. And look, he's invented a new system called Solid Pods and Solid Wallet. His company Interrupt is developing these protocols so that we have data interoperability, so we could port our data from one site to another to another. So if we're on a site and we don't like what they're doing, then we can just pull our data down, move it, and put it up, somewhere else, and that would inspire the free market. I mean, Sir Tim is just an extraordinary, incredibly great human being, and he sees where we've got to go next. He sees the problems that have been created that he didn't intend for and didn't anticipate. None of us anticipated what happened to social media and to the web.
At the social media for that time, was there a company kind of acquiring these social media channels at that time, or what happened to a lot of social media sites? I think I was seeing something with MySpace, and the founder was like on some island, and ended up being acquired. But were there was a conglomerate of the social media sites at that time? What happened to a lot of them?
Well, let's frame the time for everybody because in Web one, Sir Tim wasn't really. I didn't know him. I didn't know Woz, Sir Tim, Raj. These are all, Sherry Turkle. These are all extraordinarily wonderful people who came to my side and came to advise me in Web two. In Web one washes out because the economic model washes out. So, and what happens in Web 1 was called the new economy because, the way investors invest in Web 1 was based on whether you could get members. We called them eyeballs back then. So your eyeballs were what made you or didn't make you. And so investors were throwing money at, entrepreneurs in Web 1 based on how many eyeballs they could get. And we were developing community platforms. They were called community portals back then. Social media wasn't a buzz phrase back then. Community portals were. So now here's what happened. But for everybody, whether you were drugstore.com or whatever you were, pets.com, whatever you were, it was all about attracting the members, attracting the customers. Profits had nothing to do with anything. So. And what happened with Web 1 was all of a sudden in 2001, the investors panicked and this was not fair because, the game was keep getting your members, get your eyeballs, and then we'll all figure out our revenue models. Right now, get your members, get your loyal, consumers. And all of a sudden, investors panicked. There were some emotions, there were some concerns about there was no economics. And of course, there weren't supposed to be then. You're supposed to build your site first, build your membership first. But investors panicked, and literally thousands of companies went out of business in Web 1, and Web 1 collapsed. Web 1 imploded in 2001. It just collapsed. Now, out of the ashes of that, Web 2 was born. And hence, in the book, I talk about this. Surveillance capitalism was born, where all of a sudden your data was everything, and targeting and manipulating your thoughts, your opinions, and your purchase decisions was everything because that's where revenue came from in the Web 2 business model. And hence, as fast forwarding to my 2020 TED Talk, on the rise of surveillance capitalism. And there's a great book by Shoshana Zuboff at Harvard about surveillance capitalism. And surveillance capitalism has become an integrated part of our lives and very, very creepy.
Let's talk about a few examples, right? Because I encourage anyone to check out the TED Talk. You talk in there, like the algorithm sometimes knows, that you're pregnant before anyone else knows. They know certain things about you sometimes maybe before someone else knows about them, just by what they're searching, what they're looking at. And they get served. Yeah, it's getting served. I've heard these stories too, like people getting, served ads for diapers, and the husband's like, "Oh, I don't know why I'm getting served ads for diapers." And then the wife's like, well, actually, I'm pregnant. So, talk about a few examples you've seen. that kind of illustrate the surveillance capitalism piece?
For everybody too. So that is basic surveillance capitalism, the way it had been, because it's supercharged now, was, and I said this in 2012, I did an interview on Fox Business the day before Facebook went public, because they wanted somebody to say, what's the problem with this? And I said very clearly, I said, the problem is that they're reading everything that I'm writing, and they are serving an ad. If I say need some dog food to a friend of mine, then immediately within seconds, I get a dog food ad. So that's the original surveillance capitalism, where what they would do is the algorithm was engineered to study everything you wrote about, everything you talked about, because those apps are listening to where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, and create this data packet on you, so they knew everything about you, what your likes, dislikes, your personality, your concerns, your health issues, your financial circumstances, your politics, your religion, all your perspectives on everything. And this is where surveillance capitalism was born. From that, Meta, Facebook, was able then to sell access to you. Advertisers, marketers, politicians, nefarious political operatives, anybody who can pay can target and manipulate you and your, whatever it is they want to manipulate you about, your opinions, your purchase decisions, your health issues, finances, sexuality, whatever. It's all there. Now, here's the really scary part. As if this isn't bad enough, now we have AI. And AI now supercharges the algorithms that are tracking and studying and targeting you. So it's not only that they can figure out what you want or what you think and how to change that, but now with AI supercharged algorithms, literally these companies can anticipate your thoughts before you think them. And this is really spectacular in its insanity.
I'm going to share my screen for a second. I'd love to hear. So like, what do we do? Right? What do we do? But like, I remember watching we're looking at the social dilemma, right? And there's people from Facebook, from these social networks saying how crazy this is and how they won't let their kids install the social media apps on their phones. So knowing all of this, like obviously restoring our sanity online, what are some of the things people can do?
Thank you for sharing that. Right. And, every social media executive I know, everybody, they don't let their kids on social media, certainly not until they're, 15, 16. They're very, very careful. They know how destructive it is. It wasn't designed to be that way in Web 1. It's become that way because, of course, we all know about body shaming, bullying, image issues, suicides, the addiction. The other thing, Jeremy, that we need to just mention around that algorithmic, tracking is that this is why you even see old people. You might see your parents or your grandparents or yourself totally hooked, whether it's on TikTok or X, on Insta or Facebook, wherever it is, because the AI supercharged algorithm now can keep your newsfeed going. It knows exactly how to manipulate your brain to keep you hooked on whatever it is that you're looking at and to keep feeding it more and more and more. That's why people are hooked for longer periods of time, more than ever. And you notice this, I hear this all the time. Hey, wait, my dad, my uncle, my aunt, and it's like, yeah, it's incredible. So what can we do, everybody? So,
It's hard to be disciplined. I'm watching Mark Weinstein videos and TED Talks, and all of a sudden I'm served these, basketball dunk videos, and I'm off like 5 deep on, keep serving me those Michael Jordan highlights or all these highlights. So I get dragged into it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, none of us are really impervious now, because even as the Wall Street Journal reported, I don't know, like 2016, that Meta was tracking you, whether you were logged in or not, whether you were a member or not. I should say at that point it was Facebook. that they were aggregating data on people that weren't members. And if you are a member and it's pretty easy. They're listening on your phone. All you have to do is talk about something, with a friend of yours, while, you've got your phone around, and all of a sudden you're going to see, hey, you reach out to this person, hey, remind about this, or, hey, buy this. It's creepy how pervasive this is today. So, and there's a bunch of strategies in the book, Restoring Our Sanity Online. There's a bunch of strategies in addition to advice on how we shift it all. But there's a bunch of strategies for you as an individual, for kids, for parents, what you can do right now. And some things are really fundamental. I mean, we're seeing that authorities like schools, the school systems, the Los Angeles school system, for example, has decided to, ban the use of phones at schools, in public schools. Now, that's really important because that's helpful for kids. One of the things, everybody, is to role model. And I don't care whether you're listening to this and you're 15, or you're 30, you're 45, you're 60, you're 75, whatever you are, we're all role models. We're role models for our kids, we're role models for our parents. And so if you're living in a house and you're a family, and you're part of the family, then role model. And don't use phones at the dinner table or the breakfast table. Put it down, put it away, make some rules and stick to them. Because don't expect your kids to, that old rule that your kids do what you do, not what you say. So don't be a hypocrite. And also you need to discipline yourself. And, phones shouldn't be in anybody's bedroom at night. By 8, 9, 10 o'clock, whatever it is, curfew for everybody. Phones downstairs, being charged. It's not like go sneak and look at it. No, it's like it's over. And then you've really got to look at the studies today that show that 5 kids, 10 to 13 are on these phones 5 to 7 hours a day on media. We've got to stop that. You've got to be part of this. So, and also babies, for your babies. Listen, Sweden just announced that up until, for the first 2 years of a kid's life, don't show them a screen because it's all addictive. Now, we know all too well how addictive it is. You just heard Jeremy say how he got hooked by dunk videos. The screen is so addictive, and this is not new. Jeremy and I had televisions and phones in our houses when we were growing up before this tech era, and our parents had to regulate those things. So it's still, we need to regulate, but today we need to regulate ourselves. And, there's lots of different ways to do it. Also, you want to look at the sites that you're on because you want to teach your kids critical thinking and yourself, because there are so many fundamental mistruths and deep fakes, all this stuff online. So you want to get back to not believing everything you see. And, historically, Jeremy and our listeners, if you're 13 or under, you believed everything that an advertisement told you. So how do we expect a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old to be able to filter a YouTube video for its truth or all the falsehoods and, exaggerations that are being perpetrated online? So it's time for a new era of critical thinking. So, it's a great opportunity to teach your kids critical thinking. What's real? What's not? What's the fact? What isn't? How do we uncover this? There's a lot of things we can do right now.
I want to hear some more of Mark's rules. I'll call them Mark's rules. Okay. I love these, by the way. So no phone at the dinner table. Have a curfew for the phone.
Table.
No phone in any eating table. Curfew. No phone in the bedroom. No screens before 2 years old. What are some other rules that you think about, and maybe they're in the book, maybe they're not?
Well, here's something that you want to be recognized, everybody. Bots and trolls. Understand that bots and trolls are everywhere, even on X, even blue checked on X, because bots and trolls, these are farms, basically. They're run by human beings. There could be tens of thousands of them. They can all be programmed to have a credit card. and then therefore to put it up on X to get a blue check, to be a premium member, so to speak. So again, you want to recognize that even, your followers, and certainly it's well documented that Elon Musk's followers, that even Joe Biden's followers, now Trump's followers, that, bots and trolls can easily make up half of those. That if you see a conversation where there's a whole bunch of negativity and their names associated with those posts, half of them or more are not real people. There are foreign adversarial, countries, Russia, China, others, and political operatives in this country who want us to believe things that aren't true, who want to disrupt our democracy. So here's one of Mark's rules that's really important. Disagreement is the backbone of democracy. So remember, we don't hate our neighbors or our friends or people of different opinions. We were made to. The bots and trolls have thrown salt, have thrown gasoline on the fire. Pull it back. Remember, we're Americans. We actually love each other. We believe in the same things. We might have a different opinion of being a Republican, a Democrat, or a different opinion about issues. That's supported. That's what makes us a democracy. Remember that. Democracy is where disagreement is supported and you're not hated and you're not put in jail and you're not harassed because of your opinion. That's what democracy is. We've all got to get back to remembering the backbone of democracy is disagreement and that we're all Americans and we really love being Americans.
So what should people do as far as that goes? So like they see a bunch of negativity, does like just be aware these are bots and not engage, or what do you recommend?
Stop believing everything that you see and read on social media from either side, for any side. Start using common sense. Use critical thinking. Ideas of perpetration of one side or the other. Let's get back to the common sense of America. So the idea here is, and this is really where your phone comes in and your computer, it's like, all right, you want to be entertained, then make sure you're being entertained. So to stop believing that it's true what you're seeing and come back to, we got to get back inside our heads. Because right now our heads have been kidnapped. So remember, and this is where social media was kidnapped, the algorithms, now the AI supercharged algorithms, the AI friends. Remember, AI is not your friend. AI is a completely neutral product that then is programmed for one thing or another. AI can be very good. We can use AI to get rid of the bots. Bots are AI, but we can use good AI to get rid of bad AI. So, listen, you've just got to come back to, and we've got to have some common rules about AI, but that's coming. That's coming.
I want to hear, this is actually on my list to ask you about, because I've seen people talk on both sides of this, and we'll say AI, ChatGPT. I've seen, people take really opposite stances here, which is one, hey, I don't want my kids on it at all. I want them to learn critical thinking. I don't want them to take shortcuts. And I've heard the opposite of people like, I want my kids literally asking ChatGPT any question they have and learn to start to use it and utilize it for what it is and expand on whatever idea or answer questions. Because if they don't, they're going to be left behind. So I'm curious your thought on kids in this point in time, right? It's obviously AI it rapidly changes, but using like a chat GPT to, ask it questions and engage with it or not? What are your thoughts?
Well, listen, the way you just described, that's Siri, that's Alexa, that's ChatGPT. They're really not very different. AI, there always was AI. AI now has just become, more intelligent, more supercharged. Asking, listen, there's nothing wrong with educating all of us, our kids. It's great to be able to ask your phone, a question that you can get an answer to right away. How many bones are in the body, or when was Taylor Swift born, or whatever you want to know. But to have AI write your term paper, or I think the perfect example, Jeremy, is during the Paris Olympics, where Google, with its Gemini AI, ran an ad many times with a dad and his 8-year-old daughter asking Gemini to write a letter for her to an athlete. That's ridiculous. Then this is where we are impairing on the education and the qualitative and quantitative abilities of our kids and ourselves. No, teach your kids how to write a letter. Let them practice writing a letter. If you use AI to write your papers, to write your letters, to do your math, to do that, then we're going to have a bunch of humans who don't know how to do much, who basically can't think for themselves at all. So AI has a high function. This is great. Jeremy, when we were kids, we had encyclopedias in our house. So, the encyclopedias, like these huge, volumes of books, where we could go learn about anything. We had a topic, there wasn't a button we could push, or Siri, tell me about this, or Alexa, how do you do this? We went and looked in the encyclopedia. So in certain ways, this is just the encyclopedia live in real time, able to generate the best answer it can quickly, but use it appropriately. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's basically, use it for certain things that you're, maybe certain questions, but maybe don't overuse it for something that you should be doing yourself and missing out on.
Yeah, we're already using Google to research if we have a physical ailment, or, a fever, or symptoms, or whatever. Google is now supercharged by AI, but the search engines, Google, DuckDuckGo, they're already providing us with information. Where we cross the line is because AI has this capacity to mimic the human brain. So, for example, on Snap, you have an AI friend and things like that. This is where, there are now stuffed animals with this sort of like AI, this talking stuffed animal that's actually talking to your toddler, or your young child, and then, listening to them and using AI, because it's connected to the web, to provide some kind of answer for them. Now, this is where it gets dangerous, because that's also collecting data on your kid, all this stuff. Don't use AI inappropriately, but AI is almost a misnomer, because we've had AI for years, everybody. It's just supercharged now, and now it can be used for a lot more things, and can also replace jobs. That's a different conversation.
There was something we were chatting about before we hit record about Facebook and Australian members. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, listen, my book is full of anecdotes, because I've been in social media for 27 years. And look, everybody, so right up to the present moment, and I've employed countless engineers, and, I know all the technologies, and Web3, of course, and, Web4. The book is going to introduce Web4, which is really where we need to go. So we'll talk about that in a second, but Australia and Facebook, at one point, just a few years ago, this is really quite recent, just a few years ago, there was a revenge porn issue going on in Facebook with Facebook members. It's Australian members. Some were using revenge porn to get back at their, former relationships, or former loved ones, whatever. And revenge porn is a pretty nasty, get back. Basically, it requires you to you take some, of your porno photos, your sexy photos of your partner from previous times, and you just broadcast them for everybody to see. It's a terrible thing, because you expose the other person in very terrible private. You ruin their privacy. Now, so here's Facebook's idea for how to fix this problem, because this is the hilarious part. So Facebook decides, in their infinite wisdom, to ask every one of their Australian members for a nude photo of themselves. So Facebook can create this huge nude photo database of every Australian member, So they could run that, and match that against any photos being put up on Facebook so they could pull them down. Now, does
Oh
that sound like
God.
a good idea that Facebook would have a nude photo of every one of its Australian members in a database for hackers? It's like, you have just got to be kidding me. That's your solution to collect nude photos from all your Australian members? Fortunately, Australia, people in Australia are smarter than Facebook. They weren't going for this. And they basically laughed it out of out of Facebook's agenda. But Facebook sent messages. This is real, everybody. Facebook really came up with this idea and tried to implement it.
Yeah, I don't know.
You
I don't
can't
know
make this
how
stuff
that.
up.
I don't know how that got out of the brainstorming room where it was hatched, right? Like, oh,
Right,
this
right. How does
sounds
that get
good. Let's
out?
do it.
Yeah. Yeah. How in the world does somebody say, wait, I have an idea. Let's get all of our members in Australia to give us a nude photo of themselves. Yeah, we'll create this database. Yeah. No,
You know, Mark, what made you decide to write the book? Because obviously you could just keep along the journey. You founded MeWe, you had other books and speaking engagements. Why did you write Restoring Our Sanity Online?
Look, everybody, and of course the book's in the background, and this is it right here. But um, I'm an ethical business person. I love capitalism. I'm a pure capitalist, and capitalism really works because the whole idea of it is to create something that delights people, and then it's called doing well by doing good, as my friend Raj Sisodia says, and then you can prosper from serving people and giving them something that's of value to them. The problem with capitalism is when you're so good at it, then you become the best in the business, or the most popular, and investors throw money at you, and then you lose your ethics. Now, case in point is Facebook. Facebook, in Web 2 came up with, a pretty good engineering solution for a new kind of community portal for people to connect and stay connected and find their friends and share all this life. And then Facebook became successful, and then investors threw hundreds of millions of dollars at it. Facebook blocked out competitors, bought competitors, became, Mark Zuckerberg made a statement in 2010. This is really the epitome of it all. And he said, privacy is a social norm of the past. Why? Because he had discovered how great surveillance capitalism was for his wallet and for the coffers of Facebook. So here's the problem with capitalism: when it becomes monopolism, creates its own set of problems that we need to fix. This is why we need the government. We need antitrust regulations. We need to keep the marketplace competitive. I left MeWe in 2022 to write this book. MeWe still exists. That's not, this book is about how do we fix this whole industry. So this problem, not just social media, but surveillance capitalism, bots and trolls, the problem, mental health of our children, the mental health of all of us, democracy, these are huge issues that must be reconciled with. We've got to solve it, and there are ways to do it. There are technologies coming. So as I mentioned, Sir Tim has invented pods so that we can own our data, so we can't be manipulated. So, there's all these things coming. I'm explaining it all in the book while telling all these stories and also comparing. There's fascinating parallels between big agriculture, big energy, big tech, the stories, the ways that we save ourselves, our families, our societies. It's time. Big tech's gotten a little unwieldy. So I took 3 years to heavily research and to formulate the way home. And that's Restoring Our Sanity Online. And it's a good read. If you read the reviews on Amazon, thank you everybody who's put up reviews. It's a good read. People love it because also my sense of humor comes through. So you're going to chuckle, you're going to read stories, then you're going to see the actions that we can do right now as I call out. And I'm going to introduce you to Web 3, because nobody really understands Web 3. And I'm going to introduce you to Web 4. So you will become savvy, and it's 155 pages of text. There's a whole bunch of appendices, So it's an easy, punchy, good read, and it will empower you to help. We're going to go to a new place that's better for all of us.
Mark, I want to be the first one to thank you. Thanks for sharing your journey. It's pretty remarkable journey. You could see if you're watching the video, you could see you go to Mark Weinstein inventor.com/book. You can also find it on Amazon. Is there any other places online we should point people?
Sure, it's wherever books are sold. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, the independent bookstores. You can go into a bookstore, look for it, or order it. I know it's been in the airport bookstores, the Hudson bookstores. Many of you probably saw it in the book shops if you've been traveling during the holidays. It's out, it's available. Please share it with your friends. I always ask people, buy one for yourself, and if you love it, then buy one for somebody else or for a school, for a library. We've got to get this conversation going because it's up to us, and we can do this. And this book makes it really clear to everybody what happened, where are we, how do we get to the next place, we're all ready for it. Let's get this started. Let's get this party started, as they say.
Everyone, check it out. Restoring Our Sanity Online and Mark Weinstein inventor.com, more episodes of the podcast. And we'll see everyone next time. Mark, thanks so much.
Jeremy, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.